Hello everyone, welcome to our TJ Comments and Responses channel. I hope you are all doing well. In this video, we will prepare for the book study, Complete Testimony, for the week of April 21st to 27th. And this week, we will study chapter 25, paragraphs 8 to 13, and the box. Questions 8 and 9. Why did King Agrippa go to Caesarea? King Agrippa went to Caesarea to make a courtesy visit to Governor Festus, with the aim of establishing a friendly and political relationship that could benefit him. This was a common practice in the Roman Empire, where officials visited each other to form alliances. When Festus told Agrippa about Paul's case, he became very interested and decided to hear the case personally. Additional comments. Agrippa's interest in Paul's case reflects the importance of judicial events in Roman politics. Agrippa's fascination with Paul shows how political and religious cases could capture the attention of Roman leaders, who saw them as opportunities to strengthen their influence. As mentioned in Acts 25:22, Agrippa became curious when he heard about Paul, underlining the significance these trials could have in the political context. The ostentatious arrival of Agrippa and Festus at the tribunal highlights the public and solemn nature of judicial procedures in Rome. However, the true significance of the event wasn't the pomp of their entrance, but rather Paul's words, which were about to have a lasting impact on the trial. This contrast between outward appearances and the content of the speech emphasizes how, in these moments, the truly relevant aspect was the message Paul was about to share. Questions 10 and 11. How did Paul show respect for Agrippa, and what did he tell him about his past? Paul showed respect for King Agrippa by politely thanking him for the opportunity to defend himself before him, recognizing his experience in Jewish customs and controversies. Paul took advantage of this opportunity to share his past, emphasizing that, as a Pharisee, he lived according to the strictest sect of his religion. He explained that, as a Jew, he was expecting the coming of the Messiah, but now, as a Christian, he affirmed that Jesus Christ was that promised Messiah. This made Agrippa's curiosity about the case grow. Paul also shared how, in his past, he persecuted Christians with great cruelty, even attacking Jesus' followers in remote cities, due to his fierce conviction that he needed to eradicate this movement. This account of his transformation probably surprised Agrippa, who might have wondered why someone so violently opposed to Christians had changed so radically. Additional comments. Paul's respect for Agrippa is not only shown in his verbal thanks, but also in his strategy of using Agrippa's knowledge to contextualize his testimony. In Acts 26:5, Paul points out that Agrippa was well versed in Jewish customs, which gave him the authority to understand Paul's story, turning his defense into a smart move. This shows how Paul used the circumstances to his advantage to make his statement more effective. The transformation of Paul from persecutor to Christian preacher is a central theme that highlights the power of conversion. In Acts 26:9-11, Paul not only mentions his violent persecution of Christians, but emphasizes his complete conviction in that behavior, making his shift to Christianity even more impressive. This story, in addition to showing the magnitude of his change, invites reflection on how deeply rooted beliefs can radically transform. Questions 12 and 13, Part A. How did Paul explain why he had changed? Paul explained his change by recounting the vision he had on the road to Damascus. During his journey, he saw a light from heaven that was brighter than the sun, and heard a voice speaking to him in Hebrew. That voice, which was Jesus, asked him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads." This event marked a turning point in his life, leading to his conversion to Christianity. Additional comments. Paul's change was not just a personal turn, but also a deep recognition of his error in persecuting Christians. In Acts 26:15, when Jesus reveals himself to Paul and says, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," the truth is revealed to Paul that his fight was not against the Christians, but against God himself. This moment of revelation and confrontation completely transformed Paul's life, turning him from a persecutor into a preacher. The encounter with Jesus was a deeply personal experience that not only changed his view of Christianity but also his relationship with God. Paul was being called to a divine mission, and his explanation of the vision on the road to Damascus reflects the transition from a man acting on wrong convictions to a man who, after being confronted with the truth, felt compelled to change. This experience shows that, in many cases, true change begins when we are confronted by an unexpected truth that alters our perception and direction in life. His story becomes a testimony of how divine intervention can radically change the course of a life. Questions 12 and 13, Part B. In what sense had Paul been kicking against the goads? The phrase, kicking against the goads, refers to the futile resistance an animal experiences when it kicks against a sharp stick used to guide it. In Paul's case, this symbolizes his fight against God's will. Just like an animal that hurts itself by resisting the stick, Paul was hurting himself by resisting divine direction, not realizing that his resistance only caused him pain and separation from God. Though he was sincere in his persecution of Christians, he was wrong, and when confronted by Jesus, he experienced a profound change in his way of thinking. Additional comments. The metaphor of the goad not only illustrates the suffering Paul experienced by resisting God's will, but it also highlights the futility of his struggle. Just like the animal that kicks the stick and hurts itself, Paul, by resisting God, was causing his own spiritual damage. This reflects a broader truth: when we oppose divine direction, even when we do it sincerely, we are bound to face unnecessary suffering. Resistance to the truth is not only painful but also contrary to our spiritual well-being. The image of kicking against the goads also suggests an internal struggle that Paul was experiencing, although he was likely unaware of it at the time. As a persecutor of Christians, his anger and determination led him to take increasingly extreme actions, but his inner conscience must have been in conflict, as he simultaneously believed he was serving God. His resistance to recognizing Jesus as the Messiah was a battle against a truth he didn't want to accept, which ultimately led to a confrontation with God's will, as shown by Jesus' direct intervention on the road to Damascus. Well, these have been the practical answers for this week's congregation book study. I hope this is very helpful to you, my dear brothers and sisters. Sending you a big hug, and may Jehovah bless and protect you always.